evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show where I ran. I ran so far away. I gotta get away. And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dogcat Fox, Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Tedious Thursday. It's been a busy evening for me. I'll talk about more about that a little bit later, but man. We're back in the wonderful world of TED Excellence. I can't tell you how much I miss this every week. It's like every time I'm done with an episode, I think, I can't wait till the next one. But I'm probably not going to be saying that after next week. You know why? You know why that is? Next Wednesday, October 11th, is my 7th anniversary on YouTube. And what am I subjecting myself and perhaps you on that day to? Why, amongst other things, a TEDx marathon. Yes, I don't have it scheduled quite yet, but keep an eye on your Twitter feeds and or the Discord. At some point in the relatively near future, I'll have that scheduled up. And I've saved some TEDx's over time for a special occasion, and I think I might unleash 1 or 3 of them on that day. So stay tuned for that. But that's next week. We have an endeavor to deal with tonight, but I'll get to that momentarily. First, who's joining me this evening? This beautiful Thursday evening. Let's see. Joseph Rodrigo, good evening. Noah Sencio, hello. Caro Soldier, hello. Bookworm Addict, hello. Adabisi, hello. Cynic, hello. Who else is here? Let's see. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Shell D, hello. Who else? Shadowclaw, hello. Keldrig, hello. Did I already say hello to Kiro Soldier? Kiro Soldier, hello again, or first time. Derek LaRue, thank you so much. Derek LaRue puts a message. What is this? What? I may be mistaken, but I think this is the first time that a super chat from Derek LaRue has ever contained a message. If I'm off on that, apologies for the drama, but holy cats. Derek LaRue, thank you so much. Trying not to miss your streams. I got a big project is due this month for a client that has been taking most of my attention. At least I made it to this one. Can't promise about tomorrow, though. Well, Derek, I sympathies on big projects that suddenly fall in your lap, taking up your attention. I've had that experience both recently and in the near future. It'll be befalling me as well. So sympathies on that. But thank you so much for your generosity and support as always. Good luck on the project. And we'll miss you tomorrow. But and I'll talk about the tomorrow thing later on. But it'll be there for you when you have the time. So thank you. Thank you again, Derek, so much. Who else is here? Simon Willikins, hello. Mark Smart, hello. Tech Alpaca, hello. C. Thomas, hello. And thank you so much. I'll have more time to TEDx next week. Penis. Thank you, C. Thomas. Appreciate it. Yes, there'll be plenty of TEDx next week. So far, I have 3, maybe 4 TEDx got lined up. Plus, I may have a special guest coming in for the 7th anniversary. Maybe more than one. We shall see. And let's see. I think, Zed the Snarky, hello. And for anybody that I missed, anybody who's lurking, anybody in the future, hello. So tonight is the night when we talk about remote work. Yes, as with most TEDx's, I grabbed this one simply on the basis of the title, as it intrigued me with the concept, why remote work is harder for minorities. And I thought to myself, how does remote work know what you look like? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. Now, as with all TEDx's, I haven't watched this ahead of time. However, I could not help but notice the location in which it's taking place, and that's apparently Paris. And HEC Paris, I had to look it up just to have my own, edification, is a business college in the suburbs of Paris, France. Now, the speaker is speaking English. I did have to double check that because sometimes TEDx, fools you with the what the subject is going to be talking about and or the language it's presented in. So I'm not quite sure where this is going to go. Is it about specific circumstances in Europe, in Paris particularly, or France? Is it about just remote work as a concept? Don't know. I have a couple of theories about what this might be about, but I'll let our speaker present it to us, and we'll take it as it comes. Spudgun, good evening. A2P, good evening. And Roger Reynolds, hello. And before I forget, at the top of the chat box, you take a look at the GoFundMe's up there for our friends Maddie, Lisa, and Angry Illinoisian. If you have a couple of bucks to spare, please take a look at those and donate if you can. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share those out on social media. That would be appreciated. Also, tonight's bingo card is bingo card C. C as in Lunar Helium-3 Minor. And that's MINER for reference. Yes, that was the selection on the poll for today's bingo card. If you'd like to join in on the poll each week to choose the bingo card, you have to follow me on Twitter. I'm going to say Twitter. Hell with it. Scribe_light. And you can join in on the Twitter poll each week to choose the bingo card. Okay, I think that covers everything that is necessary. Oh, Yvonne Solomon, good evening. Jamie Milquist, good evening. And I think that's everyone. Again, I hope to say other hellos later. All right, so let's get into this. This clocks in at just under 16 minutes. This is HEC Paris Rewire and why remote work is harder for minorities. Let's begin.
Where were you in March 2020?
Where was I in March 2020? I was home. In general terms. I mean, I suppose I was, depending on the time of day, in the office or in my apartment, or I don't know. Where were you in March of 2020?
You remember?
Yeah, I mean, March is a relatively lengthy period of time during the year. It's about, let's see, 30 days have September, April, June, and November, all through 31 days of time. So maybe you want to get more specific?
On March 11, 2020,
yes,
the World Health Organization declared the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
Within days, governments across the world announced a state of health emergency with mandatory lockdown, which meant working and studying from home.
If you were able to, because obviously not everybody had the ability and their jobs did not allow for that. So you had a whole bunch of people who effectively lost their jobs or put on indeterminate furlough, or their businesses just flat out failed. And remember, it was just 2 weeks, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Remember?
For many people.
Yeah.
As a senior consultant, helping large organizations plan and roll out the digital tools for employees to work from any location, I had a front seat to how that would unfold.
Okay. I have to say, and I've talked about this before, I was fortunate. My company was fortunate in the sense that, thankfully, we already had established for people because of some of our my coworkers, employees of the company, worked in different locations than the centralized location of our offices. So we already had some infrastructure established for remote working, just because of the circumstances of our work. And so thankfully, because of the work that we do, we could relatively easily transfer over to all of us working remotely to do the work that we needed to do to keep the business going. That was just by dumb luck. There are countless other companies out there that did not have the ability to do that. Yeah, we were already accidentally prepared for such a situation, but that was just one of the few times in life where, like, you know, something actually goes your way, at least for the sake of the situation.
My client then was a large French company with thousands of employees across France.
Okay.
They thought they had working from home sorted. The technology was in place, some of it state of the art.
Okay.
But in spring that year, what we found is that of all staff, only 1/3 could work from home at full capacity.
Okay. Well, not knowing what this client company of yours does, I mean, if there's some kind of physical element to it that has to be on site, then Yeah, I mean, that was probably true for a lot of companies.
A figure which is consistent with a survey from that time by Stanford University.
Oh, what? Stanford? Oh no, not Stanford. Yes, for those of you that don't know, I have quite the now somewhat ancient history of conflict with Stanford University. I have a playlist on my channel called A Stanford Education. You can take a look at that if you want. It's a running gag. I have one or two of those.
As my team scrambled to roll out the effective tools for people who had difficulties working from home.
Why did they have difficulties working from home? I mean, is it that were there jobs that could not be done or performed remotely, or what was the barrier?
I started to notice a few patterns about them. And I was struck by the realizations that the working from home solutions that I had been building up to that point were always meant for only one type of person in mind.
A person with an internet connection?
You see, before COVID, those who could work from outside the office were also those who had been approved by their hierarchy.
Approved by their hierarchy. Well, sure. I mean, prior to the pandemic, most businesses want you to work on site and be able to work on site, you know, for various reasons. But yeah, if unless you were in a situation where you had to work remotely, like in my company, we have a couple of employees who work out of state for business related reasons. So even though most of the company is centralized in one geographic location, and the offices are as well, you know, but those are special circumstances. And if you're going to go into a situation where you need to work remotely, you need permission, right? Okay.
It would therefore not be a surprise that most of them were statistically more likely to be highly educated white men.
I don't know if that would be a surprise or not. If you say so, and if we're talking about odds here, again, I would have to know, just for context's sake, which I'm probably going to circle leaves out vital context if we don't get more information. What exactly is the business that your client was doing? Would most of the employees be required to have a college degree of some kind? And what were the population statistics, demographically speaking, of the area in which the company was based? Because if the large proportion of the population working in this industry required college education and the population demographics were majority white, then I guess I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't know. What is the implication of your statement?
There were, of course, the mothers who worked from home in order to better care for their children.
Oh, so it wasn't all just men then. Okay.
But that was usually seen as not being compatible with a career progression.
Not being compatible. Wait, what? Sorry, I got to try that one again.
Usually seen as not being compatible with a career progression.
Oh, career progression. Okay. Well, if this is pre-pandemic, when working remotely was not effectively required, I suppose. I don't know.
So when it became clear that working from home would become standard for most people within many organizations,
yes,
I kept wondering about those for whom that type of arrangement was not meant.
Not meant. Okay, so again, as far as I know, we're still talking about her one client, right? She was working for one client to establish for them infrastructure necessary to work remotely. Okay, so prior to there being a government mandated lockdown of people being able to go outside or congregate in places, working remotely was a rarely allowed circumstance or option for people, and only then based on needs. But now it's a requirement. So this, I think, I would hope our speaker would agree, circumstances have drastically changed from it being a maybe to a has to be, would kind of open up the field regardless of the circumstance, right? Am I missing something?
And I decided to research the experience of minority professionals working from home during and since COVID.
Why? What? Why didn't you look at the differences between people who never worked remotely and then were forced to work remotely regardless of their skin color? Why are you bringing up skin color? Why are you bringing up race? What does race have to do with it? Why not look at people who are being forced to work remotely whereas they never had been before? Why? Okay, I'm going to the bingo card real quick here. I'm going to go over it one time just to remind ourselves what we're listening for, and I might make a couple of circles here. So remember, this is bingo card C. Links are in the description. Plays victim. She's not talked about herself yet. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, without knowledge of what the company that she's working for does, what its hiring requirements are, anything else, her statement about, well, most of the people allowed to do this were college-educated white men. Like, well, is that somehow an anomaly based on the circumstances? I don't know, but apparently there's some implication there that obviously the company she was working for was racist and sexist. That's the only, and educationist, I suppose. That's the only thing I can take from that. Weightless example. I mean, until we get to the point of her argument, I'm not quite sure what the example is that we're supposed to be assessing. Anecdote that probably never happened. She hasn't really given an anecdote yet. Or at least not enough that I can say one way or the other. Benevolent condescension, yeah, we'll see. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Feminism, no. Childhood or family anecdote, she hasn't talked about herself yet. Privilege, there's an implication there that remote working prior to the pandemic was the privilege of a specific demographic and so on, but I'm going to wait and see if that word is used explicitly. Sales pitch for product or service. Her working on remote infrastructure is just kind of part of the speech so far, unless she names a company or starts touting her own, consulting services or something more so than she already has. I'm going to wait. Microaggressions or unconscious bias, not yet, but it's been implied. Patriarchy, no. Economic disparity, yes, but I'm going to wait for a more firm example. Mind reading or assumes motives. Again, we might already have an implication there, but I'm going to wait. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, not yet. Word salad, not yet. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion, not yet. Marginalized or marginalization. Again, I think we're probably headed that direction. Contradicts own point or argument. Not sure what it is yet, even though the title of this talk might tell me otherwise. Systemic or institutional. Again, implied, we'll wait. A list, not yet, but we'll wait for a formal list. White supremacy, no. Although, again, there's an implication there. Argumentative, non sequitur, not yet. And collectivize his own demographic. She hasn't referred to herself in that way as of yet, at least. So far on the bingo card C, leaves out vital context and circled free space. Probably have others coming on the way, if not explicitly, then implicitly. Thank you again, C. Thomas. Hope she's using a jetpack for that canyon leap. I don't know. She just kind of, I love when people throw out facts like that without any context, and they just leave them hanging in the air and letting the implication just, be fueled by imagination, right? The God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. And thank you, Alan Thyler. Good evening. Thank you so much. Hello, Scribe. Hello, Alan. Hope you're having a good evening. All right. Enough of me blabbing, at least for the moment.
And this research led me to the deep conviction that we must rewire the way we approach diversity and inclusion in today's hybrid workplace.
Diversity and inclusion, circling diversity, equity, and inclusion on the bingo card. I didn't even know this was going to be about a DEI speech, but I guess maybe it was inevitable. Okay, how should we approach it? When before there was no government mandate of lockdown and businesses did not need to have their employees work remotely versus a time where everybody that could was effectively required to, the gates were open. The playing field was leveled by force majeure, but you need to look at how it's split up on the basis of race. Okay.
Because what I learned is that the experience of a minority professional working from home will depend based on the level of which they can express who they are when they engage at work in what I call rituals of informality.
What I call rituals of informality. Oh my gosh, attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I didn't think we'd get there. Oftentimes we don't. Okay. Why is a minority unable to express themselves or express who they are versus a non-minority? What is special about a minority? Why does it, and what do you mean about who they are? I mean, so far you haven't talked anything or mentioned anything about a who. You've mentioned a what, a demographic, or actually a combination of demographics that you're putting into one category of minorities. What about who they are needs to be expressed or is being restricted from them being able to express themselves remotely? I mean, like right now in my own, and this is just my personal experience, and I will confess to those of you out there for future reference, I am a college-educated white male who was not working remotely before the pandemic hit. Either way, how much of myself did I need to express in the workplace? Well, the work that I did was very at my terminal, in a cubicle, kind of did my bit every day and went home. Now that I'm working remotely, same thing. The most interaction I have with anybody is through a intercompany chat program and a weekly conference call where we sort of do our weekly report of what we're up to. And beyond that, I don't know. I don't really feel the need to. I don't express myself to my coworker. Like I'm in the wilderness here. I need to know what she's talking about. What does she think that minorities in particular need to be able to express about themselves that they cannot do remotely?
In case you're wondering what rituals of informality are.
I am very much wondering what rituals of informality are. Are you talking about chit-chat, coffee talk, sort of basic mundane socialization by the water cooler?
Let me tell you that if you have at least one colleague or classmate, you probably engage in them multiple times every day.
I suppose it depends.
At the coffee machine.
The water cooler?
Cigarette break.
Water cooler?
Lunch table.
Water cooler?
Or after work drink.
Oh, dang it.
There are the in-between moments where we're invited to no longer be strictly professional and instead relax and share about our more personal aspect of our lives.
If you feel like it, if it's appropriate, but okay, I'll stipulate those things, those interactions can happen in the workplace. Why are those special only for minority populations? Oh, you're ridiculous lunatic in the chat. Is that a list? You know what? You're right. I will take that as a list. It wasn't a bullet point list, but it's enough of a list that I will accept that. So yes, I got that there. All right. Keep going.
Like chatting about the past weekend or future vacation plans.
And those concepts and notions are exclusive to certain races?
They bring a personal touch to work interactions and have been linked with collaborations and the creation of new knowledge.
Sure. Okay. And
But because they're also extremely codified and tacit, following the norms of the dominant group in an organization.
whoa. Codify the dominant group in an organization. Okay. Do you mean demographic? Or are we talking about like ERGs? Because those are groups in an organization. Do you mean the standards of professional conduct based on, I don't know, the bylaws or whatever the business you're working for, as far as like dress code and what is permissible and what is not, and what could be a risk to your job and so on. The rules of the road for the particular business you're working for. Codified by the dominant group. You mean the bosses?
For minority people or anyone who does not feel aligned with the mainstream.
Whoa, wait. For minority people or anyone that does not feel aligned with the mainstream? So, if minorities and hipsters, is that it?
Those rituals can also feel like minefields.
Okay, if I have some kind of social awkwardness or shyness or something else, wait. Your skin color determines your social acumen now? What am I missing something here? Suddenly, swaths of people based on their race and or ethnicity are inherently socially nervous just on the basis of what they look like. I think that's called being self-conscious in more cases than not, but okay.
Because in matters of diversity and inclusion, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast? Wait, what?
Because in matters of diversity and inclusion, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
What? I'm circling word salad. I don't usually have salad for breakfast, but in this case, I'm going to circle it. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay.
In other words, it doesn't matter what statement an organization puts on their website or how many anti-discrimination charters they sign. If the conversations that routinely take place within those rituals of informality are racist.
Okay, well, here's an idea. With the onset of remote working, rituals of informality are effectively eliminated. So the risks are zero. Right? Isn't that a good thing? If those conversations or interactions if they are racist. Sexist. Any more ists you want to throw in there?
Homophobic.
Oh, okay. Well, there's an ick in there. Okay.
Ageist or derogatory in any other way.
Derogatory in any other way. Oh, well, just open up the playing field, I suppose. Okay.
Then any pretense of equity or inclusivity is at best naive.
Okay, so on the hypothetical that a coffee machine conversation between two employees, or maybe an employee with themselves, because these days, who knows, happens to be racist, sexist, ageist, ableist, homophobic, happens to be in the workplace, in the 21st century, in 2023, in the current year, then, okay. Well, again, I'll just say, well, aren't you glad then that remote working eliminates even the barest possibility of that happening?
So to go back to the experience of minority professional working from home,
Right. So all of that risk is eliminated.
let me walk through the stories of 3 people I've met during my research.
Okay, here we go. We get some anecdotes and we can assess probably or not happening and all that fun stuff.
The first one was Henry,
Henry, okay?
a manager and out gay man who routinely came to work with his full self.
Routinely came to work with his full self. What does his sexual orientation have to do with the workplace?
Within the daily chit chat, he had created work interactions that were both authentic and enjoyable.
Uh-huh. I feel like there's an exception coming.
And he would often share bits of information about his life with his partner as a way to socialize and make work more pleasant.
Okay.
That is not to say that his work was completely free from discrimination or microaggression.
Oh, microaggressions. Oh boy, microaggressions are unconscious bias. Circling that one on the board. Boy, oh boy. All right. Gotcha there. That's not to say that microaggressions, small comments, gestures, or otherwise that are interpreted by the witness as being offensive, whether they were intentional or not, which means you could conceivably conjure up offense out of literally nothing, but okay.
But he could respond to them and move on without feeling personally threatened.
Yes. Microaggressions are largely self-imagined. Yeah, but okay.
During COVID, he experienced the similar challenges that we can all remember when we think of the lockdowns.
Oh, that we can all remember? Okay, mind reading assumes motives. Circling that one. Yep, got that.
But nothing more. And he even viewed that period as one that provided him with great career opportunities.
Okay.
Then there was Marco.
Oh, that was Henry's. Was that all of Henry's story? Okay, now we're on to Marco.
Another gay man.
You really did a wide selection of individuals and their characteristics on this one, didn't you?
In an international organization.
Uh-huh.
But while he was out to some of his more open colleagues, he had kept his sexual orientation secret from most.
Okay. I got to ask, in most instances, what does your sexual orientation have to do with anything in the workplace? Why is it relevant? At all? Like, I'm not going to be asking you about, I mean, I know some men do, I suppose, but I'm not one to kiss and tell personally, and I don't inquire of such things of my coworkers, most especially in the workplace, if at all. So what is it? Who cares? And isn't that really the point at which we're trying to get, where it's irrelevant? Like, I don't care about your love life. You're my coworker. You know, I'm not your therapist. I don't know. I have a very old-fashioned, I suppose, notion about coworker relationships and so on.
And approached rituals of informalities by remaining vague about himself.
Well, that was his choice, wasn't it?
And instead, maintaining the image of a hardworking expert.
Whoa, wait. Instead? Wait. Wait a sec. Okay, what does, whether you are open about your sexuality or not, what does that have to do with maintaining the appearance of a hardworking expert? What? Wait. So if he had been more forthcoming for some reason about his love life, then he would suddenly not be a hardworking expert? Am I missing something?
However, for him, the price of silencing significant aspect of his life was deep inner conflict and stress.
That is a pain self-chosen. Unless you're going to tell me that he was being forced by a superior at the company to keep that quiet or secret or something, I'm not quite sure what the problem is here. And I'm also not quite sure what any of this has to do with working remotely.
When COVID happened, he was so afraid that his colleagues might accidentally hear or see his partner during video calls.
So don't turn your camera on? And again, sounds like a him problem.
That he made them both move house, not just once, but twice.
Wait a second. Wait. Okay. So I've got my webcam on at the place where I live with my partner. I am afraid at some point he's going to wander in the background during a conference call and someone's going to see him. So in order to mitigate the risk of this possibility, I'm going to move my place of residence twice to avoid my partner ending up in the background on camera.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
Okay, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Absolutely. I mean, if in the next 10 seconds she follows it up with some piece of information that negates my bewilderment, I will take it back. It'd be the first time. But that makes absolutely no sense. Also, good evening, Roan Harushan and Ostzan. And I think I already said hello to Your Ridiculous Lunatic. Hello, Luna. And I think that's everybody I see. Again, if I missed you, I will hopefully get to say hi later.
Eventually, he realized that this was not the life that he wanted for himself and his partner.
Okay, well, hey, here's an idea. I know, it's a really, really crazy idea. How about if you know you're going to have a work conference, how about you set up your office in an office with a door you can close? Or why don't you direct the camera at a back wall where nobody can walk behind you? You don't have to move your home twice to avoid the possibility of your partner ending up in a background shot. Or put up a backdrop. Or there's a dozen other things. What? And at the same time, this is Marco's decision. No one is making him do this. Marco seems like a guy who needs some therapy for paranoia. Also, Bruno Montiero, good evening. And Robert Pincus, good evening.
And started to disengage from work.
Well, okay. What does this have to do with remote working? How is that the business's problem? How is Marco being targeted by something in some way, shape, or form when he was nervous about all of this stuff before he had to work remotely? What?
Seeking instead interactions where he could be more fully himself.
Okay. Professional distance. There's your real life and your personal life, and then there's your working life. If he's having such a problem balancing the two, then he needs to work on that. That is a Marco problem. That is not a remote working problem. That is not a office place problem. That is a Marco problem.
And then there was Lucia.
That was... Okay. Okay, so the first example was an open gay man who occasionally had to deal with microaggressions, which are oftentimes fully self-imagined offenses. And then when he had to start working remotely, he just adapted. That was the gist I got from the first story. The second story is about someone who is so paranoid about anybody finding out information about him personally that he's willing to move his house twice. Do we believe that anecdote? Do we? You know what? I'm gonna take that back. I don't know. If I could imagine someone being so paranoid that somehow it just doesn't make any sense, though. Like, what does moving house have to do with the fear of your partner being caught on camera? Okay. If not anecdote that never happened, at least weightless example. Unless she circles back somehow with these 3 examples. But let's listen to the third one. Third time might be the charm here. Okay, Lucia.
A Black woman who at the beginning had tried very hard to fit into her traditional work environment.
It's interesting that you didn't mention the race of the first 2 individuals, but now you're talking about the race of the third individual. The only element to the previous 2 individuals that was worth remarking on, aside from the fact that they're men, was their sexual orientation. But now we've gotten to race. Okay.
By adjusting her behavior, appearance, and language to seem more professional.
I've known many people who, coming into a new workplace or a different industry or something, have had to readjust themselves to appear more professional. I just got finished watching The Bear. Have you guys seen this show on Hulu, The Bear? There's a character in there named Richie. Probably one of the best characters of the series. Of course, all the characters are really well done, but I really like Richie. Yeah, take a look at Richie. If you guys haven't seen the show, I won't say too much, but his arc from the first episode, by the time you get to the last, and especially the next to last episode thereabouts, that's a good example of someone, by dint of necessity and by want of feeling better about themselves and also feeling like they belong in a professional environment, changing not only their attitude, but also their appearance to fit that environment. So, okay, she came into this situation and worked to become more professional. Good.
However, because of what she experienced as the daily onslaught of ignorant prejudice.
The daily onslaught of ignorant prejudice, such as?
She had slowly started to grow tired of those informal work interactions.
Okay, then just don't hang around the coffee machine? Do you have an example of what it was that she was facing?
And felt the need to avoid them.
Okay, well, you're not required to. Last I knew, you didn't have to chit-chat with people in the break room.
When COVID hit, she found that working from home, without the expectation to interact and socialize, brought incredible relief to her mental health.
Okay, and you would have thought that would also have been the case for Marco, since he was all nervous about people finding out about his personal life in the workplace, and now that he's working remotely, those chances are winnowed quite significantly, but apparently that wasn't enough. Okay, so you have one subject who seemingly didn't have a problem with anything, either at work or remotely. You have another one who had a problem both at work and remotely, and you have another person who had a problem at work but loved it remotely. Okay, I guess that kind of runs the spectrum.
And she fully embraced it.
Okay.
But that led her to a situation where she was no longer in the loop for interesting new work opportunities, slowly slid into a boring routine, and eventually was let go.
Eventually was let go. So wait a second. At work, she willfully avoided casual interactions with her coworkers because she feared ignorant prejudice of some unspecified nature. Once she started working remotely, she didn't have the pressure to have those interactions, so she just didn't have those because they're effectively nullified. And so the same opportunities and interactions that she was missing before the pandemic by not engaging in those conversations, she was now missing after the pandemic started because she wasn't having those conversations, and they just let her go. They let her go because she didn't know about other work opportunities. There wasn't a jobs board. Did she take any steps on her own, take the initiative to find other opportunities, to ask around? Why did they let her go because she didn't seek a better opportunity? Okay. I'm circling anecdote that probably never happened, in the sense that makes absolutely no sense in the context she's framing it in. That makes no sense. That she was let go because she was not having effectively coffee machine conversations to find job leads within her own company. No.
So now let's bring those 3 stories into the world in which we live today.
You already did, because you took us into them working remotely. Okay, well, this is your opportunity to most especially take the Marco example and not make him a weightless example on the board.
In a recent survey of US companies, ResumeBuilder.com found
ResumeBuilder.com. I know, that's where I go for in-depth statistical analysis of business.
Survey of US companies, ResumeBuilder.com found that before COVID, less than 10% of companies monitor their staff when they work from home.
That's because the number... Are you leading up to, as a global health emergency occurred, things changed? Okay, less than 10% monitored. Right. Okay.
Today, that number is 96%.
Golly, I can't imagine why that might be. Here's a tip, and here's something that I ended up doing fairly early on in the whole process. I bought, since I remote in to a work machine at our office, and the network I have to log into is separate and also effectively monitored by the company, more or less, I bought a cheap refurbished laptop. And the only thing I use it for is my work. I don't remote into the office through my personal computer or anything else, just this cheap laptop that's got nothing on it. I don't use it for anything else, no other commerce, no other communication, nothing. It's basically just a stopgap, a little filler thing. Just a tiny little laptop, and I have it separate, and that's what I use to remote into my work computer and do my work. Because, just for the sake of both speed, ease of use, and being able to monitor if there's a problem in the connection or something, it just makes more sense to have a separate machine just for that one thing. And since I'm not using it for like gaming or any kind of other major office work or anything, and the computer at the office is doing all the work, you just need to have an internet connection, a screen, and a mouse, and I'm set. And it makes things a lot easier. That's my advice for anybody else that has to work remotely if you're logging into a sort of company VPN or something. Just get a cheap little laptop that can just run fine and log in. It makes life a lot easier. And it definitely, and even though I'm not physically going to the office anymore, just having that separate machine in the other room that I'm using for work versus this machine I'm in front of right now that I use for games and interactions and all the other things, and streaming as well. That little bit of distance between the two things and little bit of difference splits up the workday. Doesn't make it feel like I'm working all day from the same location. Just a little bit of, just a tip. Thank you, Angelverse, for the hiya, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Well.
I love that one. I always love that one. Thank you, Angelverse, for giving me the opportunity. I needed that after all of this Doldrums. I needed that. Also, just I saw in the chat, Angela Ariaga, good evening. Payar D. Bayar, good evening. And if I didn't already say, Simon Willikins, good evening. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Where were we?
Staff when they work from home.
Uh-huh.
Today, that number is 96%.
Yes, understandable.
And that includes 1/3 of companies where employees are required to be watched on live video feed in their home during work hours.
Okay, I mean, admittedly, I would have a little bit of a problem with that. That'd be weird. You know, talk about the separation between work life and real life. But if I knew that was the requirement of my company, if I'd been told that, obviously, then as much as I could, I would construct a little space that had, like, you know, a curtain around it, or was in another room or an office or something. And I would just make sure that that was a very controlled area if I have to sit there in front of the computer the whole time. Yeah, that would be a nightmare scenario for me, just because that would be creepy. That would be creepy. And the way that my apartment is arranged, I'm not quite sure how I would work that out. I probably have to have one of those green screen things behind me or whatever. So yeah, all right. I'll admit, that sounds pretty awkward. What does that have to do with someone's race or orientation or gender?
The survey goes on to say that the reason why a company do that is, one, to maintain productivity.
Yeah, and also to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck out of their employee that they're paying hourly, likely, or salaried, probably. Yeah.
And two, to encourage employees to return to the office.
Yeah, I guess that would be an incentive. Like, if I don't want to be constantly monitored in my home by my employer, like 1984 Big Brother, then yeah, maybe I'd want to have a separate location and so on. Yeah. I feel very fortunate that, at least as of this recording, my employer does not require constant monitoring.
That second reason is an interesting one, because it has now been demonstrated that given the right equipment and resources, people are actually more productive when they work from home.
Depends on the circumstances, but okay. Again, what does any of this have to do with someone's skin color or lifestyle or ethnicity? What?
So here I would personally argue that what companies yearn for in the aftermath of COVID isn't so much productivity, but rather what people call team spirit or culture.
They've wanted that before COVID, and they want to maintain it afterwards. Yes, that's one thing that I think does drive a lot of companies to try to encourage or require people to come back to the office, is that they feel that loss of interconnectedness, culture. Also, perhaps it might kind of edge into people's control issues in a company, depending on the circumstances. Can't have too many people operating free range of the office, but I guess that's a case-by-case basis.
That it isn't so much about making employees come back to the office to sit in front of the computer all day, but rather to have them re-engage rituals of informality.
Well, that's your phrase, but yeah, again, depending on the company, depending on the product, the workflow and everything else, I can understand why in some instances, but okay, so what?
At the coffee machine.
Yes.
Corridor chat.
Yes.
Or gossip over lunch.
Oh, you gossip over lunch? Okay. Where are we going with this? We got 5 minutes left of this. Holy cats.
With this in mind, it is not hard to see how people who come to work with their full self, like Henry, will find little hesitation in coming back to the office to interact with colleagues and their manager.
That's because Henry sounds like a very sociable guy who's comfortable in his own skin, so to speak. Marco is not, and Lucia got fired for reasons unknown. So what?
And that relationship building will lead to more trust and autonomy without the need for monitoring.
What? Well, you don't have to be monitored when you're in the office because you're in the office. They just have to look across the room to see if you're at your desk. What?
But how much additional stress would being monitored at home bring to someone like Marco?
Obviously a ton, because Marco apparently is some kind of social agoraphobe. I don't know. Thank you, Brittany Holland, for the Kung Fu Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowee, wow, wow.
Oh, that's an irate Alex Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Brittany. Appreciate it. Marco sounds like a guy who's not comfortable anywhere. And I'm still not quite sure what his moving house 2 times had anything to do with anything. And again, that's a personal issue. That's got nothing to do with his orientation. It's got nothing to do with his race or anything else. Where are you going with this?
Who's not out at work?
Well, that's his choice, and he doesn't have to be. Nobody's requiring him to be so. If he's putting stress on himself over that fact, that is his problem. What is that? Okay. I'm circling weightless example for Marco. Marco is a weightless example. His being gay has nothing to do with working remotely. He was paranoid about it before the pandemic. He's paranoid about it now. What? So what? That's a him problem. He's got to deal with that. What does remote working or the office have anything to do with his personal paranoia?
And how would someone like Lucia, for whom informal work interaction represent additional strain to her mental health?
That is a Lucia problem, but most especially it's a Lucia problem because you didn't give us an example of what you meant by ignorant prejudice. What is it that supposedly happened to her that drove her away from having informal conversations with people at work? You never said. But she's laid off anyway, or fired. So here's the thing. If your employer requires you to do something that you are not comfortable with, whether it's being monitored at home through a camera or lifting heavy objects or whatever else, then either find a different job in the company or find a different job. I'm not quite sure what else to tell you. It might not be fair. It might not be comfortable. It might not be easy, but what other options are open to you? And what does any of this have to do with what demographic someone falls into?
React to being pressured to return to the office.
Pressured to... If my boss said tomorrow, remote working is ending, everybody's coming back to the office, guess what I was doing for years prior to the pandemic? Going to the office. Don't get me wrong, I don't particularly like getting up at the crack of dawn, getting myself all gussied up, and then going out to find the bus and riding it in the dark miles away to go to the office, to sit in an office for hours on end when it's kind of boring, it's kind of quiet, it's kind of lonely, whatever, and then having to pick myself up and come all the way back home again when now I know I can do everything I need to do from home and not have to go through the process of a commute. But here's the thing, that's life.
My belief is that the COVID pandemic has uncovered one of the fault lines of organizational management.
Okay.
That despite decades of emphasis on diversity,
What?
relationship and trust building had been critically neglected.
What? What is... What? Okay. How? What are you talking about? As far as I'm concerned, remote working was probably one of the most leveling of the playing fields advents that you could possibly imagine. You know, nobody had to show up to work. Nobody had to put on a face or put on an act. Again, unless your company is requiring round the clock camera on you in front of it thing, which is just creepy to me. And I feel sorry for anybody that has to go through that. I really do. The actual stressors of getting up in the morning, having to commute, keeping yourself awake as you're getting to the office, having to interact with people if you're not particularly in a good mood, all that stuff is gone. And working from home, I mean, I got to tell you, sometimes it can get a little in a rut. It can feel like all the days kind of merge together because there's not a lot of movement going on. And part of me does kind of miss having that geographic separation between work life and home life, depending on the circumstances. But overall, I'll tell you what, I'm having a much more relaxed life as a result of it. I mean, maybe it's the thinnest of silver linings for something like the pandemic, but I got to say, if this was my option going forward, I wouldn't complain too much. But sure, everybody's experience is going to be different. What does this have to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion? All of that becomes like a company's. Here's my theory. Here's my theory, and this is just my theory. Given the ESG rating score that so many companies use and both hold to account other companies for these days, when you're working remotely, the visibility of your workforce kind of starts to dwindle, doesn't it? Okay. Showing just how diverse your workforce is kind of takes a back seat to the idea that you just have productive people working from home doing whatever else. You can't showcase your garden of diversity all that often. So is that what the problem is? Is that now that you don't have showpieces on your office floor to show off your diversity, that's now a problem? Is that what remote working has, quote unquote, uncovered?
And that we're now staring at a ticking time bomb.
A tick? Whoa. Okay. Things suddenly got very action movie.
Of historical proportion, of burnout and mental health issues for which minority professionals who cannot express who they are when they come to work will bear the heaviest burden.
Minority professionals who cannot express who they are when they come to work. Nothing you have brought up has anything to do with who. It has everything to do with what? Their orientation, their race, their gender. None of these things say anything about who a person is, right? Because here's the thing, Henry, and your own two examples, Henry and Marco, both gay men, right? Okay. What does that say about how Henry and Marco move through the world as gay men? Nothing. Henry is a sociable, comfortable, gregarious individual. Marco is a paranoid shut-in. But they're both gay men, but neither of those two factors determine anything about how they move through the world, do they? What? Just what?
In order to avoid that terrible outcome,
that you say is okay.
we must rewire the way we deal with diversity and inclusion in the workplace.
Was this the point of your talk? Okay. All right. Somehow, just setting aside my sanity for a moment, let's just stipulate to whatever was going on in the previous 12 minutes and 28 seconds. All right. This is the point at which you're going to offer us your solutions to the problem, quote unquote, that you've articulated, right?
And for me, rituals of informality is where we must start.
Well, it's your buzz phrase. Do you have a coffee table book coming out entitled that? Okay. So are you advocating for the end of remote working or a continuation? And if rituals of informality happen of their own accord in the workplace, then are you going to give us some virtual rituals of informality?
As leaders, we must think clearly and carefully about the type of diversity that we want in our organizations.
The type of diversity? Yeah, I guess pick your demographic of choice.
And if diversity is what we truly want,
Depending on how you define it.
then we must drive that cultural transformation.
Drive that cultural transformation. Are you talking about in your hiring decisions or promotion practices? Because how else are you going to drive diversity in your company without being very selective about who you hire?
And set the mechanism so that everyone in our organization can express who they are and flourish at every level.
What if I just want to come to work and work? What if I've got no interest in socializing? Why do my coworkers need to know anything about me beyond I'm here to do my job and do my job? Sometimes I just want to do my job and go home. That was my deal. I didn't socialize. I didn't bring my personal problems into the office, unless it was some kind of like family emergency or something that I had to take time off for. But other than that, I come to work. My real life stops at the doorway because I'm not being paid to have my real life at the office. I'm there to work. I'm there to do my job. Okay. I mean, again, maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Including at the top.
Okay.
As managers, we can make sure that the rituals of informality within our team are settings where everyone feels safe and heard.
How do you make everyone feel safe? If they are informal rituals, then why does it sound like you're trying to formalize them? If they're supposed to happen spontaneously between people, just happenstance at the office, I don't know. My brain won't turn off about this.
And that abusive and threatening behavior will not be tolerated.
Like what? You talked about ignorant prejudice earlier and microaggressions. Now it's abusive and intolerant behavior. Like what? Give me an example. I mean, I can imagine quite a bit, like Han Solo, but give me an example of what you're talking about. It's amazing to me you did not give us any examples for your three major examples, Henry, Marco, and Lucia. You just kind of offhandedly mentioned that they happened, but wouldn't give any details. But, okay.
And as individuals, we have the power to create new bubbles of informality.
Create new bubbles of informality. So you want to formalize informality?
In a way that avoids the sometimes soul-crushing nature of small talk.
Wait. So somehow you're going to take any random number of employees and teach them the art of conversation? You're going to eliminate small talk. Where am I? What am I listening to? What are we even talking about now? Okay, so we're going to create bubbles. We're going to create bubbles of informality in which small talk cannot exist. Is this quantum physics or something?
Actually, wouldn't it be nice to have more meaningful conversation?
Oh, Beach Boys, yes, it would be. Could we maybe start now? We've got a couple minutes left.
When is the last time you've had a meaningful conversation at work?
Define meaningful. Like today, I had a very productive conversation with my coworker over the phone because we were discussing a project and it was very detail oriented with some spreadsheets and stuff we had to deal with, and also communicating with a client. And I was just like, I don't want to type all this out on the company chat program. Can we get on a conference call? And she's like, sure. And so we got on the conference line and we had about a, I don't know, 15, 20-minute discussion about this, about the situation and the project. That would have probably taken a whole lot of, meandering back and forth, trying to type it out and everything in the chat program. And it was very productive. We were all on the same page, thankfully. I wasn't quite sure because sometimes there's some ambiguity when you're doing like text messages and things. And we had it out. We worked out the issue. We agreed on a game plan and we proceeded. And as far as making my workday easier, less stressful, and more efficient, it was very meaningful. So today, just today, because I work to do work and not socialize. But that's just me.
Or school?
Wait, at work or school? Okay, I didn't know we were talking about school now too. I thought we were talking about the workplace.
One in which you felt personally involved.
Well, I don't know how I could have a conversation with anyone without being personally involved. I mean, for those times where I send dog, cat, fox as my proxy, I suppose, but those times are kind of few and far between.
Seen?
I'm not a narcissist.
And heard?
If I'm having a conversation with someone, meaningful or otherwise, conceivably, unless they are hearing impaired, I am both, and visually impaired, I am both seen, heard, and am personally involved.
Without judgment?
How do you expect me to control that one? For all I know, my coworker today was judging me an idiot. Or maybe she was judging me a genius. I don't know. And if she was judging me in one way, shape, or form, how the hell am I going to do anything about it? What? And on the reverse side, how would she even know if I was doing what?
What?
What is that? What the fuck is that?
I probably should have hit that button again a couple of times, but man, Ay, caramba.
And when is the last time you provided that safe space, kind ear, and presence for someone?
I don't have to provide anybody a safe space when working remotely. They've got their own space. They have to make it safe on their own terms. It's not my problem. Yay!
Do you remember how it felt?
To make someone a safe space? Look, maybe it's just me, but I provide the benefit of the doubt to my coworkers, unless I'm told otherwise, that they are grown adults who can handle their own lives. Making a safe space and trying to coddle them like they're fragile little glass eggs or something is not in my job description, nor is it in my interest or time to do. But again, maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
As the philosopher Theodore Zeldin wrote, when two people talk to each other with mutual respect, when they listen with real interest in understanding another point of view.
Well, I mean, at least in this instance, and in every TEDx that I can think of, I have listened with real interest in understanding a point of view. And I tell you what, I am doing my best understanding process in the course of this, and I'm having a hard time. But okay, yes.
When they try to put themselves in the place of another.
Yeah, well, I've given some personal examples to try to relate to the previous portions of your talk. So, okay. I mean, I don't want to aggrandize myself too much, but I'm doing my best.
To get inside their skin.
Yeah.
They change the world.
Well, I mean, Ed Gein did do a lot of progress on getting inside of people's skin. Thank you, C. Thomas. The last time I made someone a safe space, I was severely annoyed, and it was imposed upon me because, unlike them, I am an adult. Yeah, I mean, circumstances might apply here, there, or otherwise. Every case is its own case, but generally speaking, I come to work to work. If I've got personal hang-ups or anything else going on in my life that is not work-related, I leave it at the door. It will wait until I'm done with my workday. Again, short of a family emergency or something that is just absolutely, demonstrably, and objectively unavoidable, I set it aside. It's a very, very grown-up thing to do, to be able to divide your time and your attention between professional life and personal life. It's something that I think should be instilled in more people. And the whole bring your authentic self to work, bring your whole self to work movement is trying to deteriorate and degrade that philosophy in ways that I personally do not think are healthy most of the time. Okay, if you cannot separate or you are required not to separate your personal from your professional life, then when are you off the clock? You want to talk about burnout? I wish more people would think about that.
Even if it's only by a minute amount, because they're establishing equality between two human beings.
Not necessarily. I could have a conversation with someone that is of a very deep topic of which I know nothing about, whereas the other person is an expert. And I might come across to that person as a know-nothing idiot, and I wouldn't blame them. Now, we might have a mutually respectful conversation, but even by the end of it, we wouldn't be on equal terms. We might be civil to one another, but that doesn't suddenly mean equality. Unless you're talking about just, being polite, being civil, having a polite conversation, a respectful conversation. If we can be equal in our assessment and treatment of one another, sure. But I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this talk was even about. We're almost to the end now, and I'm still not sure what any of it had to do with anything regarding remote work and why it's particularly hard on minorities.
That is the ask that I present to you today.
Uh-huh.
Next time you go to the office.
Which probably won't be for a while, but okay. And when I do go, you know who's there? Nobody. There might be, my boss might be there and our accountant might be there, but everybody at this point works remotely and we're doing so well at it and we're so comfortable with it. But okay, all right. Hypothetically speaking, I'll imagine a time prior to the pandemic. Okay, the next time I go into the office, yes?
Or school.
Or school. Why do you keep bringing up school? This is all about the workplace.
Reach out to that person who, like Marco or Lucia, keeps quiet about themselves.
Maybe they don't want to share, and maybe it's none of my business. And especially in Marco's case, if I showed any interest in his personal life, he's liable to run out of the room screaming. What? No.
Doesn't talk much at the...
Maybe that's their preference. Maybe I can show them respect by not bugging them. Maybe that's the safe space that they need, one in which they're not pressured to divulge things about themselves, unbidden. What was the lesson here again?
Talk much at the coffee machine or has lunch on their own.
I'm just going to repeat myself. Also, I don't drink coffee, so that would never happen.
Suspend your judgment and maybe some of your beliefs.
Suspend my judgment like, oh, I must be the one to go save this person from their quiet time because obviously they need it. I'm going to be everybody's social savior in the office. Is that supposed to be my role now?
And then change the world.
What?
One safe, honest, and meaningful conversation at a time.
What?
Thank you.
That's absolutely nothing to do with remote work. Absolutely nothing to do with remote work is harder for minorities. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No Weaver. There is no red snapper. There's nothing in the box. Okay. Anyway, moving on to the bingo card, because holy cats, that was something else. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. Okay, got that. Save on this. Refresh that. There we go. Okay, that's the bingo card as I have it. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them for just a moment, and I will get to you presently. Plays victim. Again, she never spoke about herself. She never made any sort of self-referential anecdotes, examples, or whatever. The closest that she got was talking about how she runs a consulting firm and she had a client that was moving to remote working after the pandemic. That's it. But about herself personally, she never really put herself in that position. Benevolent condescension. Did you know that conversations must involve you personally where you're seen and heard? I guess I don't know. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No. Again, she never really talked about herself. Feminism. No. Childhood or family anecdote. Again, no self-referential examples. Privilege. Yes, I'm going to go back to the beginning where she said that before the pandemic, remote work was almost exclusively the purview of college-educated white men. She didn't give any other attribution about that, but that's certainly a implicit example of privilege. Sales pitch for product or service. I don't think so. A, she never named her consulting firm. She only kind of alluded to it once. B, she never mentioned the name of the client that she was doing work for. And that was never really the foundation of this talk. I never got a sense that I was being sold a particular product or service as a result. If you want to say remote working, that's not really a particular product or service. So I'm open to arguments otherwise, but I don't think so. Patriarchy. No. I mean, I know that she mentioned the straight white male or there wasn't really a whole lot of talk about the conflicts between the genders in this. So I'm again open to arguments, but I'm not finding one. Thank you, Snubbert, so much. My bosses are like that. They put us university janitor into smack peak hours in buildings that belong on night shifts for presence, reminding us we are there for the customers. It's hell. Yeah. Okay. That's, I mean, I don't envy you that situation. I can kind of understand their thinking on it. You know, they have to have some presence there, not make it feel like a wasteland or something. You know, some kind of sense of customer service or customer associate. I don't know. It's a weird world we're in now. It is a weird world we're in now as a result of remote working. It is different. Thank you, Snubbert. And Lexi Mads, hello. Assassin of the Gray, hello. Mr. E, hello. I'll get to your comments shortly if you've got them here. Economic disparity. You know, I don't recall her making pay differentials or anything a real topic of this. Because when I was going into this, and I withheld from giving too much of a sort of personal baseline before I started this, I was thinking that she was going to bring up some kind of economic rift that was preventing some people from working remotely and other people from working remotely, or vice versa, because they couldn't afford the internet or a good computer or something like that. I thought that was going to be the basis on which she sort of built the talk, or something would be included like that. I don't think she ever really did. So marginalization. Well, if not said explicitly, she did imply it over the course of the entire thing. Even if she didn't really make a good argument as to what it had to do with remote working, she definitely did make that part of her talk. Contradicts own point or argument. Yeah, she never. I mean, the absence of a point as relates to the title or the implication of her opening statements, she never gave us evidence that remote working was explicitly, implicitly, or particularly difficult for minorities for any real reason that I can remember. And so...
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
So there's our first bingo. Might not be the last. Systemic institutional. I am going to circle this because she was talking about companies and cultures and procedures and rules and company culture and so on. So institutionalized culture and, even her catchphrase, which I suddenly forget, ritualistic informalities or whatever. Yeah, this is all part of a culture, a system, an institution. And so, anytime.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
There's our second bingo down on the diagonal. Okay, moving on. White supremacy. I don't want to double dip here because I know that she brought up at the top, college-educated white men were allowed to remote work more than anybody else, according to her. But aside from that, which to me was more of a privilege thing, she didn't lean, strangely enough, she didn't lean all that much on a white supremacy argument in this. I thought that would be a natural given the title, and again, I'm open to arguments, but I didn't really find that to be a main driver of the conversation. She talked about racism, she talked about homophobia, she talked about sexism, but I don't think so. Argumentative non sequitur. Yeah, how about the entire talk? The quote from the philosopher. Everything had nothing to do with the point that was supposedly promised in the title. And lastly, collectivize his own demographic. I don't think, again, she was almost absent any self-reference in this, aside from saying that she worked for a consulting firm on, in remote working infrastructure or something. And she never named the company or a position or anything, just that she was a consultant. So aside from that, I don't think she ever did. Anyway, so that's the card as I have it. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please put them in the chat now. You might want to tag me in it so I can see it more clearly. And I'll scroll up a little bit. And let's see, Snubber with a little follow-up there. Our customers are faculty we never see, and a shit ton of students who treat us like furniture. I'm sorry, dude. That sucks. That sucks. Lexi Mad, Scribe Light, not a strange world, not a weird world. It's a mad world. Thank you, Lexi. Alexi, Mad's world. Advocates Diabli, her contradictory examples should have led to conflicting conclusions, yet she used them towards a single point, making one of them, take your pick, a non sequitur. Exactly. They were all over the place. All her examples, all her little threads of argument, they didn't come back to anything. BG, she would have to have a point to contradict. Yeah, well, there's that too. That is also true. Let's see. Assassin of the Gray, Scribelight, veiled racist needs to be a square now. Excuse me. Well, I mean, I guess the old square of makes race, sex, etc. Excuse me, brings or mentions race, sex, etc. for no reason. Was the previous close tie for that one, but I I will consider it, even though I think that was half a joke. Advocates Diablo sales pitch. I think she secretly owns stock in buildyourownresume.com. Oh, well, okay, that's resumebuilder.com was the first thing she brought up. If she'd leaned on that a bit more, maybe that'd be a sales pitch, but she was just citing. I mean, I'll give her credit. At least she gave a citation for her study, which oftentimes the speakers do not. Adabisi, she was talking economic disparity when she talked about the college-educated white men. I think that was a big part of her reasoning. Oh. Anybody else want to expand on? I mean, it's a bingo square, but she didn't talk about making money though. That sounds to me more like a social disparity. Expand on that, or if somebody else has another economic disparity argument. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just not quite sure. Payar de Bayar, these new normal types, because they're awkward, push collectivist ideas that are counter to the base of the political side they tend to say they associate with left, independence, and race, sex, culture. She was it was like she took pieces of 3 or 4 different TEDx's and kind of smushed them together. Because I've heard the argument in several places before that remote working was particularly difficult for, name your demographic of choice. I've heard that before. Or more particularly, there was that roundtable discussion of DEI consultants that we looked at a few months ago now, where they were talking about remote work in the aftermath of the pandemic and how that was harming DEI initiatives. Because nobody is seen, everybody's on a remote thing, et cetera, and so forth. Yeah, because DEI is so often and primarily based on aesthetics, when you remove the need for people to display their aesthetics in the workplace, it almost becomes irrelevant, thus making the whole DEI apparatus irrelevant, thus making those consultants' careers practically irrelevant. So I've heard that argument before, but she didn't stick to that, or at least I didn't hear anything that really landed on it. Advocatus Scribely, she did mention white supremacy in sense when she spoke about racist conversations at the water cooler and whatnot that needed to be snuffed out. Yeah, but she talked in general terms about racist conversations. Right. That doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from white people there's a lot of different ways racism can, and a lot of different kinds of people it can bubble up from. So Lexi Mads, that's exactly what she meant. I wasn't even here, and I know people like her cling to the pay gap when it comes to college-educated white men at work. Mr. E. Scribelight, why do people have jobs? I'm just saying, if it is really bad for minorities like the speaker suggests, that is the primary reason people get jobs. And Snubberth, to the sales pitch, she's a consultant. In my experience, they are more salesman, middleman to services or programs. It's true. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but insofar as what the talk contained, she never said something like, at my company, Consulting Incorporated, we do this, this, and this, and this to solve the problem of diversity in remote working. I needed something like that. I needed a little bit more. I needed a little bit more specificity in naming a company, naming an app, naming a service, something. And I realized you said resumebuilder.com, but that wasn't so much a sales pitch as just a citation. And I can't. Let's see. Advocatus. Yeah, the college degree thing could only have been mentioned as a nod to an economic disparity. Okay, the more that I think about it, the more that I agree. So, with that being the case, that square is circled. And as well.
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay!
Right?
There we go, our third bingo. And given the time, and also given apparently the state of my voice, I don't know, I didn't drink enough water today or something, I think I'm going to start wrapping it up here, guys. Okay, So that's the bingo card. As always, if there are arguments for squares currently uncircled that you'd like to argue for, and this show has concluded, please leave them in the comments. You might get a retroactive square circle, or perhaps even a bingo, depending. If you make a good enough argument, I do pay attention to the comments, so thank you ahead of time. Couple of programming notes. Okay, this is short notice, but then just the way of the world lined things up this way. Tomorrow, Friday, October 6th, at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Central time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, is episode 7 of Living on Borrowed Crime. Yes, I know it's been a while, but trust me, I've been trying and trying and trying to get another interview lined up for the last couple of months. And for all the people that I've contacted, things just, it's just one of those things. Things just kept lining up incorrectly, or stuff would happen, or it wasn't the right time. Either way, finally it's happened. And so tomorrow, at 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'll be interviewing Music City 911, a very interesting individual in that his YouTube channel is relatively new. He's only got like 400 subscribers on his channel, but he's been doing a podcast for a few years now and just started dipping his toes into the YouTube world. And there's a lot of interesting things about Music City 911, not just your regular 911 compendium channel. No, Music City 911 is an active 911 dispatcher. This guy brings a very unique perspective to the subject matter that he deals with in his podcast and his YouTube channel. So that is tomorrow night. Joining me to co-interview Music City 911 is a familiar face that you may remember from the previous episode of Living on Borrowed Crime, Justin from Just Interrogations. He's very excited to talk to somebody who actually is and works in the 911 realm, given some of his previous content. So that is coming up tomorrow night, Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Link is up on my Twitter feed. I've also put it up in the Discord. Speaking of the Discord, before I completely forget myself, let me give you guys a link to the Discord. If you're not already a member of the Discord, this is how you become a member. You have to actually watch the show and get the link when I put it up in the chat. And so the link is now in the chat. And all you have to do is click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you have to give us the secret word. The secret word will tell me and my moderators that you actually watch the stream and thus can earn the right to become a member of the Discord server. Today's secret word is informal. Yes, informal. That's what this entire TEDx talk was at the end of the day. Very, very informal. With that, everyone, I'm going to call it here. I want to thank you all for joining me for this foray, that's the word I was looking for, into whatever it was, TEDx. And I hope to see you next Wednesday, especially for my 7th year anniversary on YouTube. Special marathon TEDx's out the yin yang, plus God knows what else. We'll figure it out as we go. I'll have a link up to that in the next day or two. So everyone, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday. You have a good Friday ahead of you. Hopefully I'll see you on Living on Borrowed Crime if you can make it. I hope you have a good weekend ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.